Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander, and as always, I am excited and honored to get to host another Power to Fly virtual chat session. Now, before we dive in here, I just want to go over some quick housekeeping rules. These will help make sure that everyone has a positive experience today. So if this is your first Power to Fly event, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you today. Now, the love is no less real for our frequent flyers. I love seeing our familiar names and faces in the chat, so thank you all for joining us as well. The big thing to know about Power to Fly events, whether it's your first or your 50th, is participation. We want to make sure that you are able to get the most out of today's event. So we want to encourage y'all to participate in a couple different ways. If you'd like to, please feel free to turn your cameras on. You're welcome to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. But no worries and no pressure to be Instagram perfect, y'all. Truly, we do not care if you are coming to us from a corner office or your living room couch. You could be in your bathrobe or a three-piece suit. We don't care. We just want to meet you where you are. Now, if you don't feel like being on camera for literally any reason, that's completely fine. You can always participate by chiming in the group chat. I'll be hanging out in there during the event and hopefully getting to see some of your questions. So if you do want to head over to the chat and start get it hopping over there, please feel free to. I'm always really eager to see how far our global audience spreads. So tell us where you're joining from. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So please feel free to share if you know whose land you're on. Now, as we're going through today's session, we are recording. And what that means is that you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversations that I'm about to have with Camila and Teresa. Now, the one thing to know is that recording is going to be emailed to y'all. You'll get a link in about 4 to 5 business days that'll have a link to where you can rewatch the recording when it's posted on powertofly.com. Now, there is a huge archive. Everything in our past chats and all that kind of stuff is on our website. But if you don't want to wait a couple days, or you just want to pass off the information that you gleaned today to a friend or a relative or a coworker, you can always head over to our YouTube channel. I'm going to share a link for that in the chat in just a moment. Hi, YouTube. We're broadcasting there right now, but the recording will usually be posted there by the end of day at the day of the event. So you can always check those out there to rewatch in case you missed a resource or a source that somebody listed. Now, the other thing about that chat, oh, y'all loving this: Seattle, Washington, Vegas, San Antonio, Texas, the Frisco Bay, Danbury, Connecticut, Toronto, London, Brooklyn, Denver, Mexico. I love seeing how far y'all are located. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, as you are in that chat, networking with your fellow attendees and connecting with our speakers, just make sure that, as always, we are leading from a place of kindness and respect. Now, if you have a question that you'd like to ask, but you want to be kept anonymous, DM me your question. I'll happily do that. And if you have a question at any point for our Yelpers today, please feel free, send it in that group chat. Now, our hosts today are here on behalf of Yelp. I'm pretty sure Yelp needs no introduction. It's a pretty well-known company, but they've been a partner with Power to Fly for several years, at least 3 or 4 that I'm aware of. And we really love hosting events with them. So if you are at all interested in Yelp and anything that we say today really piques your curiosity, I'll share the link for their company page in just a moment, but I recommend that you head over there, check out their page. You'll get all kinds of great information on the company culture, benefits. You can take a look at events, so like past events that they've partnered on with us. And then, as always, you can search for and apply right to jobs right from powertofly.com. All right, very excited to bring up our first speaker to the stage. Teresa Guan is an engineering manager at Yelp. She started as a site reliability engineer in 2021 and has transitioned to be the engineering manager of Yelp's cloud economics team, and that change took place in early this year. Her team leads the cloud cost management strategy at Yelp by following FinOps principles. Now, this marks her 4th career change, going from bookkeeping to now as an engineering manager. Now, in her spare time, Teresa likes to bake desserts, sew clothes, and try her hands at new arts and crafts hobbies. Teresa, welcome to the stage. Is there anything else that you think our audience should know about you before we dive into questions today?
I think that's pretty much it about me. Yeah, from the 4 different career changes, I was a bookkeeper, and I became a cloud operations engineer, and then a site reliability engineer, and then now an engineering manager.
Heck yes. As somebody else with a similarly non-traditional path. I absolutely love hearing about the kind of like career lives that people had before they were where they are now. I think so many of us are going to be working like forever. I'm going to be working till I'm 100. So I think that we're probably at the lead of, you know, how many career changes we've had, but I think it's going to be a lot more normal, you know, as we keep going. Awesome. Teresa, thank you for joining us. Now, being on stage with Teresa today is going to be Camila Casquillo. We practice this so often, Camila. Camila Casquillo. Now, Camila is an engineering manager at Yelp, where she leads the development of large-scale machine learning systems for Yelp's ad products. Now, she's been with Yelp for 3 years now and was previously a tech lead of their applied machine learning before she transitioned into management. Camila holds a PhD in statistics from the University of British Columbia. Welcome to the stage. Is there anything else you'd like our audience to know about you?
Thanks. No, I think that's a great intro. Thank you so much again for letting us come and chat with you. Really excited to talk with you all.
Ooh, there we go. Thank you so much for joining us today. All right, I'm going to get my speakers up on stage here, and we're going to dive into your questions. So just remember, if you asked a question at registration and you're not sure if we're going to get to it, ask it in the chat. If you asked a question at registration and you think there's extra details or context that we should know so we can give you, you know, a great and helpful answer, let us know in the chat. Ask it again. If anything that you're hearing sparks a question and you want to know, ask it, y'all. Ask early, ask often. It is the best way to make sure that your question gets asked and answered today. All right, so let's talk through kind of each of your respective experiences. I want to talk about what it was like to land your first role within management. Camila, do you want to start us?
Sure. Yes. Yes. Thanks for asking. So I think similar to Teresa, I recently I'm a fairly new manager, and before that, I think as I mentioned in the intro, I was mostly focused on the technical aspects of things as a tech lead. And I've had the chance and the opportunity to have a lot of mentors, both formal and informal mentors throughout my career. And I think there was throughout these conversations that someone mentioned, is this a career path that you'd like to consider? And to be honest, when someone first asked me this, and it wasn't something that I was considering, especially because I was like in my past, and I was fairly happy with my past as a technical lead. But I think what made a difference for me is like trying to get some more context about, you know, how I could support the team in a different way. So what would be the difference from a technical leadership standpoint, from a management standpoint? And I realized that as a tech lead, I was already doing a lot of mentorship and support, and this is something that really gave me the how they explain it. So it really rewarded me the ability to actually help others from like supporting them on that growth on the technical side of things. So I realized that there could be an opportunity for me to actually help them on a slightly different way, maybe support more their development technically and help them in their career developments. So and I think after this, I think also I wanted to mention that Yelp has a great like proto management program when I went through. So it's typically a quarter where you experience firsthand as to how to be a manager. So we gone through like mentorship from a manager as well as like basically you are a de facto manager, but it feels like a trial period for both sides, I guess, both from the company side and for the individual trying to envision themselves in this role. And I think that going through this period allowed me to also like experience things that that I wouldn't necessarily otherwise if I weren't actually like going through the process of like speaking with people, learning more about building rapport with the team in a different way, understanding what motivates them, how can I support, how can I help, and kind of that was great. So and going through this period allowed me to learn a lot and see this as a longer term career path for me. So that's kind of a little bit of my journey. So I'd like to invite Teresa to talk a little bit more about her journey then.
Yeah, I think yeah, we went like through the similar like program of going through the proto manager phase where you get to experience what's it like to be a manager, but not like the full responsibility yet. And it's also during that time where you can decide whether you want to continue being a manager or not. So for me, I really did not have any intentions of being a manager. I did not outwardly or inwardly suggested I wanted to be a manager. I was actually like on track to become the tech lead for my team at that time, but this like opportunity arose when we needed to have a new manager for a new team, and that like the new team sort of like included skills that I had from my previous work, like being a bookkeeper, knowing like different accounting things, and also my background in the cloud platforms, like knowing the different infrastructures, how they work together, how to save money on those. So it really just sort of the world collided, and then that's how it happened for me. It did take me a long time to decide. Like I made a pros and cons list, and like I had to go through like, okay, these are the things that I'm afraid of. So am I willing to take this leap and like experience becoming a manager, knowing like there will be people that rely on me for their growth, and like whether I am able to support them or not was a really great fear for me. But I realized like from all the other managers I've had before, like I know like what's the good example of being a good manager from following those examples. So I think, and also like being able to gain those leadership skills in like a different way, I think that would also like help if I wanted to transition back to becoming an engineer, is also like a great experience to have. And it's also like Yelp does allow that. Like there are like instances where an engineering manager goes back into engineering, and it's like been a successful transition between those two. So that's why I took the leap.
I love that answer because I mean, I feel like a lot of times we talk about the, you know, the choice between staying as an IC or individual contributor and moving up into management. And so often it's kind of seen like this watershed moment, and it can be, but it's nice to know that it doesn't have to be like, okay, you went that far, you can't go back now. So I think that's really great. And I loved, Camila, what you were talking about kind of like getting a chance to be in a leadership role, but like a little bit with like training wheels on, because like somebody was going to, you know, help you manage these things. I really love everything we're hearing from you. And Teresa, that bit that you said about like being worried that you wouldn't be able to support your team, I feel like if more like prospective managers had that concern, like we'd probably be in a little bit better of a situation, right? Like if more managers had that as their goal of like, okay, am I going to be able to adequately support and like develop the people under me? I think that, you know, that's probably an area that gets maybe not quite as looked at when it comes to like, you know, seeing who might be of manager material. So I very much appreciate that that's something that's on your radar. All right, let's talk about what management looks like in the tech industry. I know from existing outside of tech that it looks completely different once you move in. So let's talk about some of the common misconceptions about tech, you know, about tech management. Teresa, do you want to start us?
I think one of the major misconceptions that I've learned being a new manager is like underestimating the amount of mental and emotional energy required to manage people. Is not just like making technical decisions, but also learning about like the people you're managing, what their goals and aspirations are, and like how we can create a plan to help them achieve that. That takes a lot of energy.
Camila, how about you? What are some of the common misconceptions that you've heard or experienced when it comes to tech management?
I think maybe one to mention is like the expertise, right? So I think as a new new manager, like even a more tenured manager, you need to recognize that you're most likely not going to be the expert in any specific topic in your team. But you still need to have enough of the context to guide the team, to gauge, you know, where are things going well, where are the things that they might need more support on, but develop them and kind of become an expert of asking questions and trying to guide them towards the answers. So I think that's maybe the misconception is that now you need to kind of support your team in making those technical decisions themselves. And that means taking a little bit away outside the hat of an expert, right? So you're kind of relying on the expertise and development of the expertise within your team. Maybe that's one of the misconception I see the people sometimes expect managers to also have the in-depth expertise on things.
Now, Teresa, for your, from your experience, do you think that managing within the tech world is different than managing with, in a different industry, since you have, existed in multiple careers?
Well, I haven't done any like management level positions before this, so I couldn't really say.
No, I mean, sorry, like management that you experienced. Sorry, it didn't have to be you in management, but from being managed within various fields. Do you think that there are differences in what, in what kind of management is required, or what kind of management exists, as an industry standard, in comparison to other fields if people don't have experience within the tech industry?
I think it's like for tech, you definitely do need to know a bit about like where like tech trade-offs are made, because that's very important. Like whether like this investment makes sense on like whether you want to shift to a different technology, or if you want to continue or invest more into a technology. That's very different. For my previous work is like very just task-based. You don't really need to do research or like more investigation. Other things, from my other experiences, most like you just complete your task, you're done for the day. But whereas like technology, you have to keep updated with like new information, what's emerging, and like keep on top of that.
That makes a ton of sense. I mean, especially when it comes to tech, I feel like that's the next field where people are like, oh yeah, continuing education courses, right? It used to be something that like doctors, lawyers, like tax people did, but like nobody else, at least not commonly. And so I think it is really good that when we talk about this, we talk about the continuing education aspect. And so, you are going to have to keep like upping your skills. And it's probably not really anything that different than, staying up to date in any other field. But it is something that you have to do with intentionality. So I like that. All right, let's talk about some of the pros and cons. Teresa, you had mentioned literally making a pros and cons list. So let's start with you. What do you think were the pros and cons when you were looking into moving into management within tech?
I think one aspect is the pro is coaching people to achieve their goals. That's like once you actually see your like the person you're managing like growing and like being able to take the next step in their like roles is like a very satisfying feeling, very like just like you get the warm fuzzies. Like you can't really like compare it to like other
fledgling
things.
Bird vibes, like fly, you're doing so good, like you're all excited because like you're flying.
Yeah, it's just knowing that they can also achieve because they put in their effort and like show what they can do is just very rewarding. Another is you are sort of in charge of shaping the team and like how they collaborate and how they support each other. And like once you sort of get that right mix of support and collaboration, it's also like very rewarding experience too.
Yeah. Camila, how about you? When you think about, kind of the pros and cons of managing in tech, what comes to mind for you?
I think I can resonate a lot with what Teresa said. I think the coaching aspect is definitely a pro, and the ability to help folks on their career aspirations. I think it's basically what Teresa said. I think it's super rewarding to see, especially like when in my circumstances, right? Because I was a tech lead, and then my experience in the team or like the dynamics shifted a bit, and without now being a manager, I can see a lot of growth and like how people stepped up and kind of, getting towards the growth as technical leaders as well in the team. So I see that as, when someone changed or something changed, you move to a different role, for example, there's also an opportunity for the folks that, work with you. So I think that was definitely a pro to mention. I would say that con is like I realized that there's a lot of context switching required. I think that's kind of part of like the mental energy that's demanding of being a manager. Is I realized that, you know, sometimes during like my afternoon, I would have discussions with people about the completely different topics. And sometimes that can, I guess you kind of need to kind of adapt yourself to kind of, you know, getting into habits of like switching your brain. And now we're going to talk about a different topic. And whereas before when I was an IC, I was more or less like could organize my time in such a way that I had more of these like contacts, clusters of contacts, so you didn't have to switch as much. But it is something that I'm working on, and I think it, you know, it's some level of practice and experience hopefully will be helpful. And kind of try to be as organized as you can. I think those are things that you can try to do is in trying to minimize the contact switching during your week.
Excellent. Okay. Let's talk about some of the skills that have helped you to thrive as tech leaders. I want to know what comes to mind right away, and then we'll, you know, start thinking a little bit if there's something that has been like a skill that you did not really expect that would help you thrive, but truly has. Camila, do you want to go first?
Sure. I would say like a combination of communication and adaptability. So communication, because, you know, it is a very challenging skill set, and sometimes you have to kind of get it, like really be exposed to the challenge of communicating with maybe someone that is coming from a different perspective. And so you need to not just like adapt your communication style. So that makes sure you have, you know, the staff that you need for your team. You can coordinate dependencies with other teams, for example, and you can also understand where your team is coming from as well. Kind of learning each individual language, like how they communicate, how they like to receive feedback, both positive and constructive. And the adaptability is also really important, not just from a communication side, but also like how you work with your team, right? So I you know, everyone is different, right? So you'd be surprised that, you know, some techniques or some coaching might work well for someone, but might not work so well for another person. So I think, you know, it is important that you develop some level of adaptability, both when you work with a team, but also when you collaborate with other folks, you know, in your company. So I think those will be the top two for me.
Teresa, are there any that come to mind for you?
I would definitely repeat communication is the top one. That's how you get work done. If you know, are effective in communicating what is required between the people you manage, they need to know enough business context to do their job and understand how they are adding impact. And then back to what the people you manage, what they're doing, back up to leadership, so that they know like we are doing things that are working towards the business's goals. And also the second, I think, part is also like within communication is giving and receiving feedback is the most like very important for growth. Like knowing what you can do better or what you are actually doing really well at is also really great too.
Yes. Okay. All right, we've got some really great questions coming in the chat. So this upcoming question is going to be like multiple parts to cover all our bases here. So let's talk about advice for someone who's currently transitioning into tech leadership. You know, what would you tell people so that they can get as smooth a transition as possible? Let's see, Camila, do you want to start with us?
I say like continue developing communication. I think like if you have opportunities to, you know, I guess, for example, talk with people like us here, share your experience, like be engaged with mentorship as well. I think being both a mentee and a mentor can give you like a primer, I guess, on how to coach people and how to support people's growth. So I guess maybe those two aspects that I would suggest, like find opportunities to practice your communication, tailor your communication to different audiences, as well as some level of mentorship exposure.
Teresa, how about you?
I think there is no guarantee. There is no guarantee. Everyone's experiences will be different. Like the first time you transition into leadership, you're still learning your own leadership style. So there will be a lot of rough edges that you would have to like smooth out over time. I think one of the best advice is to just jump into the deep end with both feet, like let go of your previous like engineering role and just think solely as a manager.
Was that a difficult task to like really
Yes,
sever that?
it is. Like sometimes you just want to think, oh, I can just get my hands on this. I can fix this too.
Do you think it comes into play if you're trying to delegate, or do you think it affects other things besides like your ability to delegate?
I think it does. Yeah, one of the best things is like learning to delegate. You just need to know that this task is for people you're managing. They have the capabilities to do these things, and you also give them opportunities to grow by giving these tasks to them.
I heard somebody say that the other day, and it like completely changed how I thought about trying to like help juggle tasks for my teammates. I'm really hesitant ever to be like, I can't handle all of this. Can you take this task off my plate? And I heard somebody describe it like that. I think it was yesterday or the day before, about like if you're not delegating to your teammates, you're denying them opportunities to show off their skills, show what they know. And that really, like, truly, I learned something new in every single one of these. I've been doing this for like almost 5 years, and I still learn something new in every chat. But that one really like smacked me in the face. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's start thinking of this way. All right, so we got a ton of questions in follow-up along these same lines from people who are trying to transition into leadership but don't have leadership experience yet. So if you are, for people who are in this position, right, they want to be in leadership but they have not gotten that opportunity, or they're applying for leadership but don't yet have that experience, what would you say to them? How can people develop leadership skills if they've never been put in a leadership role? Teresa, do you want to start us?
Sure. If it's like within your company, then depending on the relationship of your manager, I think you could have that open dialogue and start asking for tasks that can help shape your leadership skills. And also a very good thing is to understand how managers are created in that company and like know that process and ask for advice from other managers or your own manager.
Camila, how do you feel about this? What were some of the ways that you gained experience in leadership roles before you actually had one?
I think I would second what Teresa said. Definitely some communication with your manager. There are opportunities that can be done, like even in the context of projects, for example, like be exposed to more ambiguous projects, coordination with other projects that involve coordination across multiple teams, for example, that can show a lot of communication, coordination skill set. For example, even if you are in an IC role. And I would say also the mentorship side again. I do think it's really important. But even in senior individual contributors, I think starting to see how you can help other folks grow and mentor not just from a technical side, but also hearing them out, right? So understand what could be happening in their lives, see how you could help, be a good teammate. I think. I guess this mentorship, like even informal mentorship, I think, or peer mentorship, I think is really important, and it can really show off and kind of give you some of the, I would say, soft skills side of, communicating and like dealing with people challenges. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I very much appreciate and agree with like basically everything y'all are saying here. So we'll keep moving with questions, but just so you're all aware, we're about halfway done with today's event. If you have questions that you want to send in, please feel free. I have been collecting all of the questions people have asked so far. So we'll be going through those as we go through our questions today. But please feel free to send in any questions that y'all have. All right, so let's talk a little bit about communicating these aspirations to our managers. One person wrote in specifically saying, I'm a specialist and looking to transition into management, but I need some advice on how to navigate this conversation with my leader. All right, so let's talk about this. Why should people talk to their managers about these goals, and how should they start the conversation? Camila, you want to go first?
Sure. I was going to say, like, I hope that you feel comfortable approaching your manager and talking about this, because I think it's really important, like, to have someone that you can discuss about career options. So I think that's the first thing. I guess I'm assuming that you would have had some discussions about career, and then if it's something new to you, right? So maybe you were thinking about an IC, because thinking more of like being an individual contributor, but now you're interested in management. I would say be honest, saying I'm looking for these opportunities. Like I'm learning, I wanted to learn more about how is your day, right? So ask them about their day, what are their challenges, learn more about how it is to be a manager. And if the opportunity arises as well, maybe try to find other folks in your company, maybe other managers if you have the exposure to them, get different perspectives. I think as soon as people know that is something that piques their interest, I think it definitely increases your chances. If and when the opportunity arises, maybe they can say, "Hey, I know a great person that's looking for this opportunity," but you need to kind of invest on like communicating them, like building a network, if you will, of folks that you trust, that you can have those conversations with. So yeah, if hopefully that's helpful, and yeah, best of luck.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? You want to be able to communicate these things, and that's where that the constant communication helps out. You have to be able to tell somebody that you want to go somewhere, right? Because if you don't tell anybody, then no one's going to be able to help you, because they don't understand that you're trying to go anywhere other than your desk with your cubicle in that corner. So, I think it is really important. And, as people are worried about broaching these conversations, like if they're worried that their manager is going to be upset that they like want to leave or something like that, what do you recommend people like do in that situation? Is that more reason to not have the conversation with your manager, or how would you recommend people handle that if the communication is open but maybe there's not a ton of support? Teresa, have you ever been in this situation?
I can't say I have. Just the culture at Yelp is everyone's really supportive, so I can't speak to that, but I think you have to sort of try to gain advocacy, like someone that can support you, or like someone who could like give a voice to like what you want and like how you can achieve that. Maybe like outside groups, or other managers, as Camila mentioned before, within the org. I
think that's good advice. I mean, this is usually where we hear people talking about, other, not necessarily extracurriculars, like that totally works. Like if you volunteer, try and sign up to head a committee or something, like show that you have leadership skills, because it doesn't have to be in the working force, and it doesn't have to be like in your own department. So, if you do want something in the work world, see if there's an ERG that needs a president. You don't even have to be at the top of the food chain, right? You just have to be involving yourself in these extra projects. So I do love that idea. That way, even if your manager's not super supportive and isn't going to give you tasks that will help develop these skills for you, there are other ways to look out and try and seek out these opportunities. And like Teresa and Camila said, telling people that you want to gain leadership skills is crucial, because otherwise they're not going to know. So if you're just saying, I want to be a manager, then that's kind of what they're going to focus on. But if you're saying, I'm trying to develop my leadership skills, that opens up a lot more options that other people might know about and would be able to either recommend you for or tell you about, so that you can see if you want to pursue that. So I think that's, keep in mind, you don't just have to go through a manager for these things. That's obviously ideal, but we don't always luck out the manager department, obviously. So okay, we had a ton of questions coming around the idea of what level of technical knowledge you need to to manage a tech team. So do you think that, do you think that managers' technical knowledge needs to go like super deep? Have you seen, managers with super deep technical knowledge as well as really, surface level, and seen them like kind of perform the same? What has this looked like within the fields you've been in? How technical do you really need to be to manage a tech team? Camila, you want to start us?
Sure. So I've actually had like a combination of managers. Some managers are more technical than others. I feel like, at least right now, I feel like I'm more myself. I think I'm more of like a more technical manager, just because I recently transitioned from technical leadership. Um, and I would say that, to be honest, I don't think that I guess like having a technical manager can have its advantages. Meaning like maybe you can talk about some technical aspects with them, and that can give people comfort at times. But I, I just really want to reiterate what I mentioned last time is like, even if you are technical as a manager, you really don't want to step onto everyone. So like, what I mean is like, you need to give your team the independence to actually make the technical decisions themselves. You can guide them toward, highlight, like, look at the risks, what Teresa mentioned, like, look at the trade-offs that we're trying to make, and like coaching them, or like asking questions to actually pique their curiosity and like their, problem solving when designing things. And that could be a way of you maintaining some level of technical expertise on things, but you shouldn't expect to be making their decisions themselves, because then you will never, people will, like your team will forever rely on you for those technical decisions. And ultimately, we want people to have autonomy to, sometimes mistakes will be made, right? And that's part of the learning process. But at the same time, I do recommend one thing that I try to do is like get a pulse of what's going on in the team from a technical side as well. So that requires some level of effort on my end to actually, make sure that I have enough of a high level context of everything that's going on, that I can know like maybe someone's struggling versus someone needs more support on that, or maybe this is something that someone is doing super fast and maybe they need something more challenging. So you need to be able to have enough of a context to be able to get those assessments. But also, like, even if you don't have the context, that's a great opportunity for growth for your team as well, right? Because you can ask them questions and they can help you understand more about things. And for them, it's like practicing communication, making sure that they elaborate well, how, like, what they're proposing, talk, like ask them to talk about the reasoning, the rationale. So I do think that overall, there is a lot of opportunity to learn as well with your teammates, with people that you're working with. That's what I would say is like, I don't necessarily, that even though there could be variability in like the technical skills of the manager, the most, I think for me at least, the best managers that I've had is the people that I felt comfortable talking with, that really listened to me and understood like how I like to, how I operate, I guess, what are my values, what are things I care about. And that you don't necessarily need like the technical expertise per se. You need someone that has empathy, cares about their team, is really truly engaged on their growth. But that's my perspective. Teresa, do you want to share yours?
Yeah, I do agree. Like, you don't need to be like the subject matter expert to be a manager, but I think having that context is very important to even just understanding like your engineers day to day and what their pain points are and how to help them is very important. Like, that's the cheat code. If you already have that technical background, you know what people struggle with. Other things are like, it's very important to know like how different components communicate with each other and like how things depend on each other. I think that's the part of the technical experience allows you to have, is like knowing which team depends on your team and like how that interaction happens. And that could, like, if you make a decision, like who will you affect and how will they be affected is very important.
No, what you're saying makes a ton of sense. And it kind of sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounds like if you don't have that deep of a technical knowledge for, whatever project or, team that that you are managing, it kind of seems like cultivating those communication skills and building up that trust with your team would be huge, right? Like it sounds like you could make up for a lack of technical knowledge by having that trust with your teammates or with your team, like your subordinates, to be able to say like, hey, here's what needs to get done. And you know that they're going to be able to do it. So I think that's a good way to kind of look at it in terms of, are you supporting the team to help them develop? Yeah, no, I think that's great. Okay, we've got some really awesome questions in here from the chat. So I'm going to try to get to as many of those as we can, but please, if you have a question you haven't sent in yet, please feel free to send it. Let's see. All right, this person wants to know, have you ever worked for a manager who was more of an introvert than an extrovert? If so, which style did you prefer? I've worked under both, but I want to know what it's like within the tech field, because mine was like 10 years ago and in completely different fields. So Teresa, have you worked for, different versions of a manager, extroverted and introverted, or have you worked for one or the other?
I'm also an introvert, so I would also like to know how my the people I manage interact with me, I think in terms of introverted managers, I think sometimes you have to be the person that does the communication first, and that can be a difficult thing to handle if you're not usually the one that does that. So I think sometimes you have to be like, I have a problem, can you help me? Instead of they asking you, oh, if you have a problem, how can I help you?
That makes sense. Yeah. Like you'd expect maybe a little bit more proactivity from an extrovert, you'd expect a little more proactivity from a person being managed by an introvert as opposed to an extrovert. Camila, how do you feel about this? Do you have experience in the area?
I would say that maybe most of my managers have been a combination of maybe a little bit introvert with certain topics, but extrovert about other things. So I guess my point is it might not be binary, right? So maybe there are circumstances, times in your life that you feel more introverted, and at least that's how I resonate myself. I feel like I'm kind of a combination of an introvert and an extrovert, and I would say that I guess how it helps me is make it as an introvert, my introvert times, I feel like I need a little bit more time to process the information, right? So maybe communication is slightly different in those phases where you would have more of a brainstorming session with the team, and you would take some time, process that information, and then follow up with your team about decision points, processes that you might want to review, for example. So yeah, I think maybe take different tools, skills, tool sets, I guess, like brainstorming, for example, and kind of encouraging the people in your team to contribute as well, and then helps you to actually collect signals, get more context, and maybe you don't necessarily need to be super extroverted or engaging or leading or facilitating a lot of the things. And in that meeting or with that time that you are feeling a little introverted, but you still allow you to actually collect some signals and learn more about your team. So maybe that is one thing to do. And if you have an introvert manager, I guess regardless of the type of manager or who you identify, how you identify yourself, I would say that just understand that even regardless of what side you resonate more, there will be some fluctuations over time, and it is inevitable that you might have to adapt and understand how to give people some space sometimes. That's holds true also for managers working with ICs. And so think about that as well. Is hopefully that helps you kind of resonate with the other side, because ultimately we're all people. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say. Thank you.
No, I mean, this makes a ton of sense. These things change and they shift. We're all people that, might feel a little bit more one way or another given day to day. But I mean, it keeps going back to highlighting how important the communication aspect is, right? Knowing that even if things seem off, you can at least go to your manager and be like, hey, are we good? Is everything fine? Like, am I, passing muster or not? So I think that is really, these are great advice. So thank you both for sharing your experiences with us. All right. So a lot of people had questions about like interviewing for managerial roles. A lot of them wanted to know if there were, specific transferable skills that should be highlighted, especially if you don't have prior management experience, but you're trying to show that you're a viable candidate. Teresa, does anything come to mind for you when you're thinking of skills that would help you to see someone in a leadership light?
I think back to like what Camila said, like the mentorship, like were you able to help someone grow? Did you give them advice or like help them in a way that they can grow themselves?
Camila, do you have anything to add here? I know we covered this topic a little bit further back, but I wanted to make sure we called out the question directly so that in case anybody was listening for this one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, aside from the mentorship, I would say like give the again, the recommendation is like communication in different styles. So if you can showcase like circumstances where you had to communicate in a certain way, and how was that for you? How you tailored your content to this particular audience? How was it received? How can you adapt the response from the audience, right? Like for example, sometimes you prepare like you have this expectation, right? So we're gonna give this topic, this presentation, and maybe the meeting goes completely like different than what you originally anticipated, right? And how did you go about adapting that? How did you get signals from the audience like, hey, I need to adapt, something needs to be changed here? So I think these are circumstances that at least I've experienced in a lot of different ways, maybe in smaller events like throughout the week that I realized that some level of adaptability is required. And if you can showcase that maybe through your work, like how you manage to get through like the successful completion of your project that probably involved a lot of coordination and adaptability. So showcase those skill sets. And I think we also talked about making sure that you have where we had some opportunity to practice some leadership skills, maybe even in extracurricular. So if you participate in employee resource groups or communities, showcase that, participate, and that could be a good way to showcase that you work with people, you can help people grow. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see, where are we getting more questions in? Let's see. Okay, this person wanted to know, how did you smoothly transition from contributor to manager within the same peers? Did they look at or treat you any differently? Do either of you have experience in this of being part of a team and then moving on to manage the team, either, as the manager of the department or, like in charge of a specific project? What was this shift like for you? Teresa, what have you experienced this?
Sort of in a roundabout way. So I'm managing people that I used to work for at a different company. So it's more roundabout. I think there is a bit of adjustment period, like knowing those boundaries of being a friend and being a manager. That's very important. Like I'm giving you feedback because I want you to grow as an IC versus like, I'm giving you feedback because you're a friend and I want you to do well, personally.
How about you, Camila? Do you have experience with this, moving on and managing people that you were either, reporting to or were coworkers with?
Yes, actually, this is my current circumstances right now. So I transitioned to management, and the people that I'm working with is the same people. And I agree with Teresa, there is an adaptability period. And for me, I think it was more of like, because I was a tech lead before, I just really wanted to, for them to be independent, right? So that they understand that, I'm happy to discuss and, I'm a mostly like tech. I have some level of expertise on what we're doing, so I can still provide support as they need. But I like them to kind of take this opportunity for growth, right? So be independent, try to make the technical decisions themselves. And I think in the beginning it was a little challenging because people still to some extent saw me as someone that had expertise on the technical side. But it's when I think it helps to kind of give them space, right? So maybe acknowledge that mistakes might happen, and we don't expect everything to be perfect all the time. But sometimes, making those mistakes is the opportunity for team to learn and grow. And I didn't have a specific conflicts, but I would say that what Teresa said is like trying to learn. I mean, you probably already had, like, if you're experiencing this, I already knew them and have relationships with them in a different capacity. But now it's time to actually learn about how they how they view their careers, and specifically how they like to receive feedback. And I think to what Teresa said, it's like maybe when you're a peer, it's more natural. Maybe you just naturally talk about this with them, like, hey, how's it going? But as a manager, I think you really need to kind of like be specific about and constructive whenever you're making, like, giving a feedback to someone. Understand that they know that you're their manager, right? So how they receive that really is different than what it used to be. So I feel like, at least as a new manager, I spend a lot of time like thinking about how to best message this feedback, right? So how can I make in such a way that people understand, what is going amazing, what do we need to work more on, and how can I support their growth? So I think that also takes time, and takes some time to actually build a rapport with the team in a different way, right? So and that holds true for new managers as well. Like I really want to do the best I can for the team, but I realize that I'm a new manager. Maybe I'll make mistakes, but I mean, I have the best interest at heart, and I think that so long as you can convey that to your team, I think it does help recognize that it's okay to make mistakes, and we are trying to do our best here. So yeah, that's what I would say. Thanks.
We did have a question in the chat. I want to know what your response is. We're going to try and do this in a popcorn round. So would you, for your, in your experience or in your opinion, what's easier, managing a new team or an existing team? That face was epic, Teresa. That was excellent. What?
So I was like, well, I do have a new team. So I think it's really easy to be managing a new team because everything is new, everything's not set yet. So you can, have that opportunity to like set up the foundation of that team and like how people work together. Whereas like with an existing team, they already sort of like have their processes that they're used to and like are comfortable with. So if you're trying to change it too much, you might get like a lot of pushback. Whereas like a new team, everything's new. This is a new process. We're going to do this, and then we're going to trial it, iterate on it, improve on it,
Yeah, far less chance of a chorus of, but we always do it this way.
Exactly.
Camila, how do you feel? Do you feel similarly? Do you think a brand new team is easier than managing an existing team?
I think definitely from a process standpoint, I think people are definitely, more open-ended, and maybe maybe the perception of people is also changes, right? So they see, oh, I can make a difference. I can really shape how this team processes are going to go. I can voice my opinions. So I think that can be like positive, not just from the manager side, but also for the team side. But I would not say that it's also like there's also some challenges as well as a new team, right? So maybe the process that you're going to introduce is not going to work well upfront. And you need somehow to you need a way to actually gauge how things are going. And I think one thing that I would normally do at Yelp is having team retrospectives. So making sure that we have these check-ins regularly to see how are things going. Is this still working for us or not? And maybe something will no longer be relevant, or we need to adapt. And that could be true also for the existing team, right? So hopefully both the existing team and the new team can kind of get through the situations where we need to adapt and change things a bit. And unless you actually get do this retrospective and have these connection points to review how things are going, then you may not react, may not capture that we needed to introduce that change, for example.
I like this. We've got people chiming in the chat here. Jenna says that she agrees. And Antonio says, I choose a new team to be easier. However, managing an existing team presents an excellent challenge to impress your manager and the business. And that is honestly, as we were saying, like everybody was like, new team, hands down. As I'm thinking, it's like, okay, well, granted, it depends on if you're joining an existing team or if you are being promoted from within that existing team. But to a certain extent, like you already know that you're getting a machine that functions, for lack of a better way to put it, right? You know that you're getting a team that is used to working together. And if you are used to working with them, you already have the cheat codes. You know that like Sally doesn't want to work on the same project as Joe, and Kwame doesn't want to work on the same project as Carol, but Kwame and Joe get along great, so they'll be fine together. And that, you know what I mean? Like you have all of this like extra knowledge kind of behind the scenes stuff that would help you out. I think that's great. Thank you, all of you, for those comments as well. All right, so we are almost out of time today. I told y'all this was going to go a lot faster than you thought. Nobody ever believes me. But I want to take a minute here to go over a little bit more information about Yelp. And actually, this leads into a question that we got asked in the chat today. This person had wanted to know about support and collaboration, what the collaboration is like within Yelp, and how y'all support your teammates. So Teresa, you had described the company culture at Yelp as supportive. Could you share a little bit with us about what that collaboration and support looks like?
Yeah, I think it may vary from team to team, but like the general vibes at Yelp is supportive. We have different ERGs, so employee-led groups that support different smaller groups. Like I think I'm in the Awesome Women Engineering, and we support with people who identify as women and non-binary, and like do different events to showcase, the work that has been done. And also we recently had a summit, and that was a really amazing time where we got to come together, celebrate, learn new things.
Cool, love hearing about that. Camila, you said that your favorite part of Yelp is the people, and this is a common response we get. But I want to dive a little bit deeper into your top tip for someone who's interviewing. Camila, what do you recommend here? And is this Yelp specific, or is this like your interview tip no matter where people are interviewing?
I would say that this is regardless of where you're interviewing, be your authentic self, and hopefully, whoever it is that you're interviewing can recognize the value that you're bringing, what you're bringing to the table. And it's always best to feel that you can be your authentic self. And I had the great opportunity, at Yelp, what I mentioned there, like the people really makes a difference in your daily life, right? So being able to talk with folks and ask questions, there's no blame, mistake, something, if you make a mistake, nobody's gonna, blame you for making a mistake. It's always an opportunity for learning. So I just think that continuously throughout my years in Yelp, this has been the common theme, and it only is possible for the people and being who they are. So I would say don't try to be someone that you're not, right? And that might be visible to whoever it is interviewing, right? So be yourself and share your values. Try to align your values with the company that you're interviewing as well.
Yeah, I love this advice to be authentic. Teresa, how about you? Do you agree? And if so, in what ways are you your authentic self when you've been interviewing before?
I think definitely is what I would bring into an interview is show who I am, because that's how they will know whether I can mesh well with their culture. And as much as it's an interviewing of you, you are also interviewing the company. So if you can show your authentic self, and whether they are receptive to that will show how well you would fit into that company.
Absolutely excellent advice. Very, very much appreciate it. All right, in the last couple minutes that we have before we lose our fabulous speakers, I just want to say a big thank you to both of you, Camila and Teresa. The time that you took to spend with us today was incredibly welcome and appreciated. And we are so, so grateful for you sharing not only your time, but your expertise with us. So thank you to you both. And I really hope we get to do this again soon.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for inviting us.
Now, for our guests today, for all of our panelists, not panelists, I'm sorry, for all of our community members, thank you so, so much for joining us today. We are really, really grateful and honored that you chose to spend time with Power to Fly and Yelp, afternoon, morning, wherever you're coming from. We know you have a lot of options, and so we're really, really grateful that you chose to spend time with us. These events exist because of you. I don't have a job without you, but even more than that, y'all took time out of your day to be here with us live. You took an hour to do something positive for yourselves and your career. Okay, please pat yourselves on the back. That is not an easy thing to do in this day and age, and truly, 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 like, you have to make it important to yourself to do these things for yourself. So like, reward when you do it. Okay. Whether you're a little treat person or a gold star or whatever it is, thank you all so, so much for joining us today. All right. That's going to bring us to the end. If this was your first Power to Fly event, I sincerely hope it will not be your last. Don't forget to check out the Yelp company page. I threw links for all that in the chat. And we cannot wait to see y'all join us on a future event. Have a nice day. Bye.